I've had a few questions from some people online that ask about the temperatures and, does the system run hot or cold or, what type of temperatures do they come under, with full loads on gaming or rendering, things like that. And we're just going to do a little update video here. This is almost exactly at 6 months. What I did add recently to help exhaust some of the heat was we just put a Corsair maglev 120 millimeter fan right in the back here. That's helped some, but a lot of people were concerned with the three intakes here at the bottom that are 320 millimeter ML or maglev bearing fans on this one too. And then the only other thing you have is three exhausting at the top. And this case is notorious for having hot spots, and it also kind of retains the heat. It doesn't, exhaust it very well. I'll show some video when I get to the bottom. The bottom is quite dusty, and right now on its off time, it's got a GTX 3080 in here, and it doesn't have an active backplate, so it gets really toasty on the top of this Zotac backplate. And that mines Ethereum just while I'm working during the day doing other things or not gaming or just using the PC in general. It helps pay for itself a little bit. My plan, though, however, I didn't want to do it, but these side intakes where some people do some fans here right on the front, they put 320 millimeter fans in there, and I'm going to try that to bring a real good amount of fresh air coming in there. I did buy an active backplate for the Zotac 3080 here, so I'm going to go ahead and install that. As my original video, it didn't mention, but the comments had it, that these are actually reversed. So this pipe here is the intake. The flow of water is supposed to come in here, out here, and then go into the reservoir. Well, the way it works is this is actually what should be going. So this outside pipe should be going directly into this one, and this should be coming out and going into the one behind it, right back here. So these two need to swap places. They need to be flipped over, and I haven't figured out how I'm going to do that yet. But that is in the plans, and we'll just see how it holds up. I've also got some different cable upgrades. I bought some new cable mod cables to make these look a little bit better, so they're not gray cables. They're black with gray accents. And I'll post an update and maybe some updated temperatures. But for right now, during the day when it's mining Ethereum, the video card's right at 49 or 50 degrees Celsius. It's not too hot, but you can feel some hairdryer heat coming out of the top of that. And the CPU really isn't taxed that much during Ethereum, so it hovers at 64. And again, that's just because the inside of the case is so hot. So that's the update, and I also plan on getting rid of these extra fittings that I have over here. I have an extra spacer in here because I ran out of piping and had to cut. I cut those too short, so I had to put an extra fitting there. I will get rid of those so everything looks nice and clean. Here's an area I never really covered when I did the case originally, but this is the back side, the cable management. So this is the inside of the cable management cover. And you can see here I've got a Lighting Node Pro. That's right there. And it's kind of double stick taped on top of a Commander Pro, if you can see that. So you've got the Commander Pro there. It goes to the lighting node. How that fits in is, you just got it kind of double sticked on the back side, and then that just slips right in here. You screw it on there and it pops into place, and everything is kind of nicely hidden behind that wall there. A few people ask, how do you drain this? With it pretty close to having the liquid up here at the top, there's not an easy way to drain it. So first off, I've been filling by removing that, but you fill it the same way you drain it. Your drain port's going to be down here on the bottom, but what I simply do is I have a soft tube fitting with an O-ring on there, pushed into some tubes, and I have a ball valve. It's quite easy. All you do is take your machine, you lift it on its back completely, and then when you get it on its back, the water should not rush out. You can tilt it to where the little air bubble, you'll see you've got a little air bubble up here. I will put some rags underneath it, and I will get the air bubble down to this area here. And I will just screw in my drain valve. So when I release this cap, the air bubbles there, nothing should come out. I'll screw this on, and then I'll tip the case back down, drain it that way. Once we get it all hooked up, we'll just release this, put a drain jar underneath it, and we're good to go. Another thing I forgot to mention is if you're draining this, it's going to drain really slow. What you want to do is loosen this so some air gets in the backfill of this and will help it drain much faster. As with anything, you live and you learn on some things, and I just kind of test fit one of the fans here. Just could get, if you could see that there, one fan screw in, and the distro block is so tight against this that I now unfortunately have to, since I can't get the top fan screws for the back fan there in, I can't slide the fan down enough to get any clearance here. Instead of just replacing some cables and adding 3 fans, this is now a complete drain, which I had to do anyway to replace the active backplate here. But now I have to drain, take the radiator out, take the card out, take the top rad out, redo these pipes, and redo everything. Got to take the front distro plate out because the distro plate needs to be removed. Then I put the fans in, and once I put the fans in, I'll put the distro plate in. Then I'll reassemble everything and figure out what I'm going to do with this. So Memorial Day weekend just turned into a long weekend. I'm going to do a little video of the block here. This is the block after 6 months. There is some debris in there. But again, this is running 24/7, and it's running, under load. So this thing is really getting a pretty good workout. I don't think that debris is too bad. I'll disassemble it and see if that's just growth or, dirt, residue. Could be from the radiator, but I don't see that in any other part of the system. The reservoir looks pretty good. Got the video card disassembled. You do see some corrosion there, or whatever this is. a video of the block. You can still see something. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm not sure. It looks a little better though. Okay, we got a bit of an update video here. I've actually removed the front distro plate. I did kind of clean this up a little bit. It still has some staining in it, but it's okay. I had to remove the top rads, bottom rads. I did get some new cables from Cable Mod, so they're sleeved and they're got the aluminum both sides black. I like the color scheme with the black and the gray. And I got some dual 8-pin PCIs, and I got a 4-pin and 6-pin EPS up top. I've got the 3 Corsair maglev fans. They're blowing towards the camera here. That should help with side intake, and like I said, I'll post a report on what type of temperature drop I get. I did have a problem up here where it's very tough to get this back radiator screwed on, the fitting screwed on there. I mean, you just can't get your hand in here to get it. So I may change those to actual curved pipes. We'll see how that goes. Also, here is a bottom view of the bottom rad intake. And I leave this thing on, it's probably been on about 90% of the time, constantly at about 800 to 1,000 RPM to cool, and it does get caked pretty good. That's what your bottom intake, if you do intake, will look like when you leave it on for about 6 months. Okay, we're going to do a little update. I think the system's pretty much done. I just got to plug in the cables and things. But you can see I got the back fans in there. I did get the brand new EK Zotac Trinity 3080 backplate installed. You can kind of see what that looks like there. It actually liquid cools the top of the card, which is down here, and the bottom of the card, the backplate here. So I actually did dabble in some Ethereum mining, and on my off time, it's already made some considerable amount of money, almost paid for a third of the computer. These terminals now look more uniform. The cables look better with the black and the gray. And I've got the 3 fans in the back. And I did change, you'll see the tubes here. I did change the way the tubes are. The inlet now is correctly going into the outside inlet port here. This inlet goes to the inlet, go through the CPU block, and then come into the outlet, and then it bends up underneath. You'll see I just got a curve there. The shine makes it look like it's bent weird, but that's okay. It's good enough. I'm happy with it. And that pipe hides it. And I did change the top pipes. I redid those. They're kind of angled a little bit because they almost have to be, because I converted from the fittings to standard just twist-on fittings. So the pipe actually go into the radiator there as well. They did have fittings that I had 90 degrees down here, but you can get in and loosen these big old fittings here fine. But if you try and get back here and try and tighten this, I can barely get my fingers to tighten the back fitting back here. But if you had a long fitting here, good luck trying to tighten that. It took me almost an hour to try and tighten that satisfactory. So I figured it's just going to be easier to grab these little pinchy fittings and twist those off and pull the hard line out when I need to and put it back in. That should make it a lot easier. And I still think clean-wise, it looks really good. I'm happy with it, and we're going to pressure test it. I'll show you the pressure test video here in just a few seconds because there's a lot of questions online about the EK pressure tester and what the proper usage is. A few items that people forget online, and this is just trial and error with me too as well, is they'll go ahead and try and pressure test, this twist-on connector is loose or this twist-on connector is loose. If these are anywhere slightly loose, you're going to lose pressure and you're going to think that you have a problem in your system, or if you're testing a single component, and that's not the case. Eliminate the tester as the first variable here. Also make sure that this connector here, this inside one, doesn't come loose for it. And another big thing is you got to remember, this is just like a flow meter on, water pipes. So if it's this way, you can pump air into it, but immediately when you get the air pumped into your system or your component to test it, you have to shut this off. So you've got to close it like this. If you don't close it like this immediately, you're just going to lose pressure and you're going to think, I got a system leak, and you're just going to panic and get upset because you think you got a leak. This has to be closed tight the moment you add your pressure in there. The manual tells you what bars to use. I don't exactly know where it was, but when I first built the system, I was going halfway in the grain because that's what EK's video says is, go and they don't really say the bar reading, but they show the guy pumping it up and then get halfway through and then he stops and he's like, leave it. Doing research and seeing everybody that's been using EK for years and people that pressure test, you get so many conflicting results that they say, hey, don't do that. That's way too much pressure. And when you read the manual in the EK leak tester, it gives you the proper ratings. People were saying if you put it halfway through the grain like the video shows, that's like 8 times more than you'll ever need, and you're going to blow out the O-rings. Some people swear it's fine. They've built 50 systems and they've never had an issue leaving it that high, and they always do that. But I'm going to rely on pressure testing because the realistic expectation is if you get it somewhere, I think it was like 3/4 or halfway through the white here, it's exceeding the pressure that simple fluid and heating of fluid and cooling of fluid will ever put pressure-wise on the O-rings. And so it was around this area here on the white, I think, that they said, or go almost right before the grain. I'll try and show where I leave it off, and hopefully that helps you guys. All right, here we go, guys. Again, make sure your 2 valves, these 2 valves right here and right here, this one and this one there, make sure they are completely tight. And this is a whole system test, so we'll get that up there. And I think I'm going to do it just right around, I think they said about the second line right there. This will freeze it. With 2 lines left, we'll see where it is. Yep. See, again, this is a kind of good lesson. Seeing it drop like that, I didn't shut this all the way. So actually, I think I'm going to go a little bit higher. So we'll go right up to the grain. And then tighten that thing. So we're right just a little bit below the grain. This here is all the way tight. We're going to go ahead and just kind of sit there and not going to touch the camera, and we'll see where it is in 15 minutes. Actually, I'll probably give it 30 or 45. All right, so it has been about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. You can see that the needle has definitely moved. We do have a leak somewhere, so that's worst case scenario. You know, this twist on connector is loose, or this twist on connector is loose. If these are anywhere slightly loose, you're going to lose pressure and you're going to think that, you know, you have a problem.
3 hours later.
What do you do to check for leaks? I'll kind of go over what at least my technique is. I'm sure there's many ways to do it. People do soapy water and brush soapy water on every fitting. I'm not going to go through a system and start brushing soapy water. It's such a slow leak that you may not be able to see it. So for me, I kind of isolate it piece by piece. So we'll go over that. So I'll just kind of go over, you know, one area of this, the thought process on what you're actually doing here. So, you know, you got your fill port here at the top. It's all filling this entire reservoir. And then what that does is that goes down here. And then obviously your pump is behind here. So if you put a pressure tester up here, this is going to be the start of everything. And then you want to kind of divide up in sections, you know, radiator section, then radiator and GPU. Then as you step up to each section, you can find out where the leak is. So I'm going to put the leak tester up here. And if you follow that down, the next part in the chain, when you come around here, is it's going to come out of the pump right here. It's going to suck from the reservoir that's down at the bottom down here. And it's going to come out of the pump, go across the radiator, down through the radiator, up here, back out. Then it's going to go into here. And then if you follow the flow path to here, it's going to go up to here. Now, at that point, I'm going to put one of these stop plugs right here. So if I pressure test that and it leaks, the leak is either here, 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 and it shouldn't be here because I'll have a plug right here. Well, actually, here, sorry, I'll have a plug up here. This is the next link in the chain. So the plug's going to be here. So that means the leak is between here, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's got to be one of those 4 that are leaking. I don't think those are going to be leaking. This was in the system before. These are the same fittings. Nothing's changed. No pipes were changed. I'm pretty confident if that holds for 15 minutes or 30 minutes, then what I do is I take the plug, I'll leave these in place, and I will go from here to here to here to here, and I will put a plug here. And I will make sure that these 2 new pipes that I ran for the backplate are okay. Right here. Now I did go ahead and pressure test. I put a plug here and put the leak tester here, and I pressure tested just the GPU before. So I know it's good, but I'm going to do it anyway just to make sure there's nothing in between. So that's kind of the process. And then you just follow the chain, and next we'll do the CPUs. These are brand new pipes done. Maybe I've got a hole in a pipe. Maybe I've got one of the connections here. The angles are wrong and it's leaking on one of those fittings. Maybe I cut a fitting while putting it in. Those are things to check. So that is the process on how you find it. Little bit of an update, guys. Did put it back together. Got the cabling and everything done. It posts. The only bad thing is the bottom 5 LCDs. They've been broke since day 1, but for whatever reason, they started working over time, and maybe it's a loose cable. I did try plugging it just the front distro plate right into the motherboard header. You know, they still flickered, so it's not an issue with, you know, too many LEDs in the chain or anything. Just having the distro plate right in the motherboard header is the only item, and we know that doesn't have enough LEDs to really mess things up or drop the voltage too much. So it's a shame. We got a bad one. I really hate to take the distro plate out to replace the LEDs in that. I'll save that for a day I drain it, but hopefully no more different tube runs, and hopefully no more crazy things to take out for fans. But that's the update. She's back together and she's working. I'll post the last video here too with the temperature differences, so what I remember it being before and then what it being after the flow changed. I did change the flow rate of the pump too. I had it at 38% for super quiet, but I put it up to 65, and it's, you can hear it, but you have to be close to it. And since this is on the side of my desk, I probably won't hear the difference between 38 and 65%, so I'm going to go ahead and try that. I'm thinking maybe that's why I was getting some of the weird corrosion or buildup or staining patterns in the GPU block, and they're still kind of there. I cleaned them up as best I could. I know the video went a little bit long, but I wanted to answer a lot of the questions that I received over the last 6 months, and these are just my personal experiences and can be taken with a grain of salt. Do your own research. You do you. I always appreciate your feedback, and thank you so much for watching.